Welcome everybody to this event. It's really great to see you all for probably one of the most important subjects of our European Union. This is the Süddeutsche Zeitung a few days ago, and they wrote, one of the experts says, China and the USA will eat up Europe, piece for piece. But then they also write, there is a chance today, the main point will be cloud. And I'm very happy that Guy Verhofstadt is here. He was a Prime Minister of Belgium, as you know, for I think 10 years, then from 2009 to 2024, member of the European Parliament. And he just wrote a book, Defeating Trumpism. And you can imagine, if you read Defeating Trumpism, that has a lot to do also with technological independence. Because as we know, if Mr. Trump says, and so on, so we need technological independence. So I'm very glad that you're here. You only have 15 minutes. You have to go to your next point. So please open this conference, and then we will discuss about all these different points.
Digital sovereignty, and you will do it, if I understand it well, in not a world. And let me start by saying that a little story that I saw on my Twitter line, X line, sorry, a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, there was an announcement by BMW that they would stop the development of their autopilot system, of their self-driving system that they were preparing, that they were, in fact, developing. And the reason why they said that they stopped the whole effort was lack of data. So BMW announced officially that that they surrender. In fact, that they say, yeah, we as a car company are not longer capable to develop our own autopilot system for our, and it will be necessary to go to a system, an other system, probably developed outside Europe. And that will be probably FSD of Tesla, that they will incorporate in the next generations of cars they make. I make this small point because, first of all, I'm a car addict, so I like cars. Fast cars, and secondly, because it's a good example of the problem we are facing. That is that our car industry, who knows that cars in the future, what is a car in the future? A car in the future is not what we see today. It will be a data and energy battery with 4 wheels around. That will be a car, not longer the car as we know it. And the car industry will be a data industry, mainly, in the future. And so one of the most advanced brands in Europe is saying, sorry, that new step we will not do. We will probably use one or other system that will be developed of self-driving technology. Normally when I go for an introduction, I have always a slide with me, but this time I forgot it. That is to show you the stock market value of tech companies worldwide. And then the blue is America, the red is Asia, and I put normally yellow for Europe. And the problem is that if you don't have your glasses, you don't find Europe on my slide. So I have then always to say, this little balloons there in yellow, that's ASML and SAP in Germany, the two only big technological companies we have, and all the rest is blue, and all the rest is red. And that's my third introductory remark, in a world in which the Europeans are per capita the biggest data producer. We produce less data than Asia. Asia produce, they are with more, if you India, China, and all these other countries. But we are producing more data than the Americans. Per capita, we are the biggest data producer. But this data goes mainly to the other side of the Atlantic, or to data centers that are ownership of the hyperscalers, American hyperscalers. So we are making the data, and the other side of the Atlantic are making the profit. That is the division of labor mostly when we talk about that. How we have reacted in the past, you know, we have in Europe our strategy is the following. That is mainly after the Cambridge Analytica disaster that it came. We need to regulate. And we need to regulate mainly to protect the privacy of our citizens, to protect their free choice, to protect a lot of things. So you can say that today there is also a big book that has been written about, big books written about that you have three main models in the digital world. The market-driven model of the Americans, the state-driven model of the Chinese, and then our right-driven model. And we think that with that model we could develop, and that has created not only GDPR, but all the rest, DSA, DMA, the IA regulation, and so on and so on. And we hope that such an approach would create an industry. The result is it doesn't create an industry. So we thought it would create an industry, but it didn't create an industry. For the simple reason that if you make a lot of regulation, what is happening is that the big players can easily adapt to the regulation. A small player, European player, has a lot of difficulties to adapt to a regulation. So I voted all this stuff, DSA, DMA, GDPR. So it's not that I was a dissident in my own group for all these regulations, but we need to understand that maybe there is also a limit to regulation, certainly at the moment where things are going so fast, faster than ever before. Why we have no big digital industry in Europe? Why, if I show you my balloons, they are all blue or all red. Certainly when we talk about the stock market value of technological companies. For the simple reason, I think, that we have no single market in digital. We have, in fact, three things that we are missing. And we are talking about it already 15 years, but we are not capable to solve it. First of all, one regulator. We have still 27 regulators. So for a technological company or for somebody who finds a new app on mobile, he needs to have 27 approvals of the national regulators before he come out. While in the US, it's FCC, Federal Communication Commission. It's one authorization, and it's over. And you can roll out your new app in the whole of the US. That's what happened, for example, to a company that you know, Spotify, that first went to the US to develop their streaming services before coming back to Europe, because it's a Swedish company, a Stockholm company, but we went to New York to roll out their system. So first thing, one regulator. We don't have one regulator. And if I got my slides with me, then I would have you shown a second slide where I show you where there is a single market, where there is no single market. In the digital, there is no single market because we have no one regulator. We doesn't nearly exist in that world industry. If I give you the pharmaceutical sector, for example, where we have a single market, not the perfect one, but at least a single market with one regulator, the EMA, and at the European Medicine Agency, and then one operator, the European Commission, who is the operator of the EMA. There you see that we have a balloon that is not so big as the Americans, but can compete with the Americans, with companies that can compete. So it's good to see where there is a single market, pharmaceuticals, where there is no single market, digital, and how there is a difference in the stock market value between pharmaceutical companies, where we exist really as a world player, and in the digital world, where it's not the case. So the first thing is the single market with one regulator is an absolute necessity to do. And the second thing what we miss is a consolidated telecom market. We don't have a consolidated telecom market. We have still more than 100 operators in Europe, with the consequence that if you want to roll out something, you need to make deals for more than 100 people, more than 100 companies. In America, it's 3. Then you cover all the US. In China, 3, 4. You cover the whole of China. And consolidated telecom market is not possible because our member states don't want a consolidated telecom market. They want to have the income from their tenders for themselves, not from Europe. The ministers of finance of Europe are the biggest enemies of a consolidated telecom market and don't want to go in that direction. But without a consolidated telecom market with only 3, 4 players, you have a huge disadvantage on the level of implementing new technologies in the economy. And the third is maybe the biggest one. We don't have a capital service market. The money. It's not that there is not enough money in Europe. There is enough money in Europe, but it goes to the other side of the Atlantic. It's there where this money is invested. If we should invest in our economy the same as the Americans invest in their economy, we should invest a year 8 trillion in total of more equity capital in our economy. So a lack of capital, because we don't have a capital service market, even when now 7 countries, I think, have made a huge announcement that they will start a capitals market union. Maybe they can first start to complete the banking union, because that's also not done for the moment. But the capitals market union is absolutely. So the 3 things that you need to start really with digital sovereignty, in my opinion, is 1 regulator for the whole market so that it is an integrated market, 1 integrated telecom market, 1 integrated market service, capital service market. And that is, in fact, a crucial development. And the 4th thing, and more specifically, is naturally data. What to do with our data? What to do with our... In my book, I'm proposing that we would start to monetize data. So to consider that data are still the ownership of the people who produce them, instead of what is happening now, where the big monopolistic social media and internet companies are saying, yeah, but we give for free our services, and that's the counter balance. But if that is true, then they need to pay value-added tax on it, and they don't want to pay value-added tax on the data that they are using. So it's the reality is that data ownership in Europe, data sovereignty in Europe, data monetizing data is a crucial issue. A crucial issue that needs to be solved, because it's not only a question of sovereignty, it's also one of the drivers of the growing inequality worldwide for the moment. And yeah, I don't need to, I'm a lawyer, so I know nothing about all this stuff, but I don't need to convince you that data will be the basis of everything. Every IA development is data-based. Kept in big data centers. Most of our data are still kept at the other side. We keep it up a little bit. There are a number of data centers in development for the moment in Europe, but maybe in ownership of the hyperscalers, the American hyperscalers, so not in our own ownership. And so there on data you see also the limits of the right-driven process. You know, GDPR, there are so many decisions by the Court of Justice, European Court of Justice, saying, yeah, because the standards on GDPR are lower at the other side of the Atlantic, you cannot transfer your data to the other side of the Atlantic. And what we do is we circumvent every time that there is a decision by the European Court of Justice by a so-called temporary arrangement. Okay, yeah, for the moment we can continue to do it. So that's the so-called Schremm judgments, what I'm talking about, that are very clear, very tough on the issue, certainly of the privacy and how to protect the privacy in Europe and how that affects the transfer of data to the US, but we circumvent it every time. So there is no limitation in the reality of the transfer of data to the other side of the Atlantic. Nevertheless, there is a GDPR regulation. next to all the other regulations. So that these Schremm decisions and the way that they have no effect in reality show the limitations of a right-based model in the digital world. Shows that in digital, things going faster than whatever legislator can imagine or can do. So that were my remarks. They were not very optimistic, but the advantage is that the idea of organizing these days is just to find new solutions to that, new way forward. And I hope that the sum of my remarks could be an inspiration for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Guy. And that's the point. That's why we're sitting here, because we are looking for a solution, and you will read about it, and then we'll say, okay, I was at the beginning of this process, and they found solution, and great. So thank you very much. You told us you have to leave, so thank you very much. And I have a little present, because I also wrote a book, and I want to give you this book. And it's just a little present, but it will seem... It's also about Trump, but it's also about their puppets here in Europe, which are also dangerous for us. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I will introduce our panel. We'll have a discussion, of course, then we do Q&A. And I start with Laura Bauer. She works with Schwarz Digits, the IT and digital division of the Schwarz Group, that includes Lidl and Kaufland. She focuses on expanded Stackit, a German-engineered sovereign cloud solution built to provide secure alternatives to non-European hyperscalers. Very much welcome. There is Francisco Mignorance. He leads CISPE. CISPE is Cloud Infrastructure Services Providers in Europe, the primary trade association representing cloud infrastructure providers. He's a prominent voice advocating for fair software licensing and a robust, independent cloud ecosystem in Europe. We have Matteo Goyer, oversees the European Commission's strategic initiatives regarding cloud computing and software. Policy plays a key role in implementing the EU's vision for digital sovereignty and fostering a competitive European data infrastructure. Christel Schaldemose, I'm very happy we're sitting together in the UDS in one of the, I think, very important commissions. She's a Danish politician, member of European Parliament since 2006 already. She's also vice president of the European Parliament. She's in the Committee of Internal Market and Consumer Protection, IMCO, and also focusing heavily on digital regulation. Welcome, Christel. And we have Olivier Barthélemy. He is mayor of Abai in Belgium. That's a city in the Belgian province of Luxembourg. And I think that's also interesting. We just had a discussion with our group, with the Committee of Regions. And this was one of the points, how the European regions will develop, of course, with the new technology. And I really would like to start with Laura Bauer in the optimistic way. Yeah? We want to be optimistic because that's a simple question. You all know Aldi, you know Kaufland. What is this? These are shops, supermarkets, where you can buy stuff. Okay, it's a European organization. They are also in the US. And then, I think in most European countries, and then they built their own cloud. They built a system to have their own cloud. So it's a very simple question I will start with. Why did you do that? Why don't you just say, okay, clouds are working. We are also working in the US. Why did we need? Why did your company decide to invest money, a lot of money, because you said we need a European cloud? Please, Laura.
I will tell you that's an interesting story, but maybe let me start with some kind of citation. I think there are plenty of definitions on digital sovereignty. I started with the topic I think it was 3 years ago, and I analyzed all of them, everything that existed in Germany, also on the European level on digital sovereignty. What our CEO said was, digital sovereignty is the power of being able to stand up and walk away from the negotiation table. For being honest with you, when I heard it the first time, for me, I found it a bit pushy. Please do not tell to our CEOs. You have to promise this to me. And maybe also a bit provocative. But if you're looking at nowadays intensity of geopolitical developments, it is exactly that. And let me put it in a frame. It is not turning our backs to international technology partnerships, but it means having the leverage to negotiate from a position of strength. And this is more in the direction of your question. Why is this so important for Schwarz Digits and also for the Schwarz Group? Therefore, I would like to familiarize you a bit with our DNA, where we come from. And as some of you might know, Schwarz Group is Europe's largest retail ecosystem, as you already mentioned, with Lidl and Kaufland. We're running 14,200 stores in 32 countries with around about 600,000 employees. So that's quite extensive. And we also have a special role. We are part of critical infrastructure, as we are the main suppliers for food and also for beverages of our population. And this is why we have very special requirements in 3 fields. The first one is security standards. The second one is digital sovereignty, and the third one is resilience. And this applies to our extensive IT infrastructure. And 7 years ago, our management decided to build our own cloud, as you also already mentioned, which is called Stackit, because we did not want to be ruled by those tech monopolies like from foreign countries. And today we have some kind of roof, which is over all those, which is above our digital ecosystem. It's called Schwarz Digits. And we are building those technological fields in cloud, in security, in data and AI, in communication, and also in digital workspace. And our motivation is always intrinsic. So we always start from building solutions for our core business in retail industry, for example, and then we opened it up to the European market. So we started with the German market, now we're opening up to the European market. And to give you one example, in our retail business, we are leading in AI. We will have, by the end of the year, approximately 1 billion data-driven forecasts done. So just to show you the extensions, and we're using AI in quite every field of our retail branch, in predictive pricing, in logistics optimization, and in computer vision. So also in our core business, everything is about data, using data, and also securing data. And maybe let me give you one short extension to digital sovereignty. For us, it's not some kind of abstract concept, it's a full stack reality. So we have a look at digital sovereignty in the very core hardware infrastructure when we're talking about chips, but also in the IaaS and PaaS layer, which might be your topic, and in the SaaS layer. So this is what tackles most of the end users and what you're working with every day. And in the end, if you're looking at cloud, it's about digital sovereignty in 3 different areas, and it's always about independence. Independence legally, organizationally, and also technically. And that's what drives us. And what we see is what also has been said before, digital solutions are more and more used as weapons for geopolitical tensions and also economic isolation. And therefore, you really need to control your entire technology stack to have an operational resilience.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let's continue with the Commission. Matteo Goyer, in public procurement is very important and often cited as a bottleneck. European cloud providers complain that the EU public tenders are frequently written in a way that favor the massive scale non-European companies. Is that the case, and why is it so?
Good afternoon. So the short answer is yes. The public consultation we conducted last year, that's one of the things the cloud service providers have told us. They've told us as well that they're looking at the public sector as a means to solve, so to fix that problem of tenders that are pre-guided, to call them like this. They're looking at public authorities to become anchor clients for their own solutions. So, in other words, to find in the public sector the way to create the business card that will then allow them to demonstrate their solutions. And it's a good intuition in the sense that the public sector can be a more patient procurer than the private sector. And they're telling us that we need a pan-European approach on what is the pure infrastructure, the data centers, and then to some favoring of innovation in Europe. Let me get to that. So what does the Cloud and AI Development Act answer to that? It provides, on that precise point, two elements. First is this idea of EU added value. So it's not an EU preference as such. It's not looking at the nationality of the service provider, but it's looking at whether the innovation and the technology that is built into the service was designed, developed, manufactured in Europe. So it can be innovation or manufacturing or design made by non-Europeans, but it needs to be made in Europe. And so it is about incentivizing the development of those ecosystems in Europe. When it gets to the precise point you were saying, there's a whole part about making member states monitor the situation of their public procurement, in particular for innovative services, and in particular with a view to, in public procurement you cannot favor SMEs, but at least what you can do is monitor the outcome, look at whether SMEs have been awarded or not, and then retrofit this into your policies, critically looking at what you've done wrong to integrate that. And that's one thing we want to do on that respect, yes.
Thank you very much, Christel Schaldemose. I mentioned it, you are a seasoned, you're a long-serving lawmaker, and we heard criticism from Guy Verhofstadt, and he was open as always and said, okay, myself, I also voted for it. But of course, he said very clearly, it's the 27 regulations and things like that. So do we need new laws, European laws, in order to solve that problem? Or what can the European Parliament do?
Thank you very much, Helmut, also for inviting me to this very interesting discussion about sovereignty. Well, I think if you look at the laws we have made the last years, we have also made them more European. For instance, the Digital Services Act, where for the very large online platforms and search engines, it is the European Commission who needs to enforce the rules. So alone that fact has changed something. But I also have to say that if we look just 5 years back, we were not in the same situation, not in the same way worried about using American solutions, American digital software. So the thing is that things has changed recently. Maybe we were too naive in the past. I might think so, but at least the 2 last years we've seen that we need to do something because we don't know for sure whether we risk being closed off. I'm a Danish member of the parliament, and during the whole crisis around Greenland, I read in a newspaper that Denmark is a very digitalized country. And I read that experts said that within an hour, US could close down Denmark because we use so much American technology. And, you know, that was really, really, really a thing, an eye-opener for me, realizing that we need to not just start discussing, but start acting. And what can we do then? Well, we can do a lot. First and foremost, the new package, tech sovereignty package, I think that's a very, very good start. I think that in the European Parliament, we also can do things. I'm responsible for digital questions in the Bureau of the European Parliament, and we're pushing for more sovereignty. We will go more in direction of open source, and when we can, we also have some restrictions because, for instance, the financial regulation doesn't allow us directly to say that we will not use non-European companies. So we will have to do it a smarter way. Maybe we should change that, because we might be the only region in the world who don't have rules to keep others out. US keep others out, China keeps others out, etc. Maybe we should also do it not as a but have the option in case we need it. But what we can do is that we can start looking when we ask for new digital solutions. Is there any European possibility to use, for instance, when we're going to shift the members' data from being stored locally on the premises of the European Parliament, then we're going into the cloud. And when we made that shift, we decided also to go for a European company for many good reasons, or at least a European-owned company. So we can do much more in our daily work, also in the Parliament, and we can make laws that makes it possible, at least, to make the demands. But we need to take into account geopolitics. And I also think that alone the fact that we start discussing this will also give us a better bargaining chip when we keep on using, for instance, Microsoft software, the Office package that we all use here in the Parliament. When we have to negotiate, the prices have just gone up, and it is a very big, heavy burden on the budget of the European Parliament. If we say that we are willing to go to open source solutions instead, I'm pretty sure that we could, and not just say it, but also willing to do it in de facto, then we could probably get a better price, but not just a better price from Microsoft, but also, better conditions, making sure that, until we're ready to do it completely, that everything is stored in EU, that everything is completely out of control from an American president that might want to close down the Parliament or whatever. So we can do more, and I think we should search for the boundaries, because we need to be very aware that we as an institution, the Parliament, but also the European institutions in general, we are vulnerable in these days. It would be something if our many enemies could close down EU, and honestly, I'm not sure that they can't do it right now. However, one last remark. I think what we need to understand is that we cannot shift overnight, going directly to European-owned solutions. It is a journey. It will take time. It will take years. But we need to start that journey. And that also means that we need to start investing in European solutions as well. And I heard this example from a guy working on cybersecurity, and said that if we should choose between a Tesla car and a Polo, and no offense, but then the most people would choose the Tesla for its efficiency and smartness and everything, and the Polo might not really be able to compete. But if you keep on buying the Tesla, the Polo will never ever get the money to be developed and be able to compete equally with Tesla. So we need also to start investing in Polo, and maybe we have a couple of years where the solutions we buy in Europe might not be as good as those we can buy other places, but if we don't do it, we will never ever get to the place where we can be truly independent. So it's a journey, and we need to start working. And we already have shifted to quant in the European Parliament. The first day was not a success, but the rest hopefully will be. And so we can do something also for the European institutions, be the front runners in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. And I didn't mention it, that we are not in the same group. Crystal Schaldemose is an S&D, Social Democrat group. But I think the important thing is we are on the same page as far as the European Union and European independence is concerned, and we are working together. And that's also something which we probably should more loudly sometimes to our voters. We are not here to fight each other, but we are here to look for solutions which are better for Europe. And you mentioned it, Europe is open. We always say we take the best, and which I hear from cloud, from European producers, let's say, when they go to certain American ministries, they say, no, we only take American companies. So we probably also would have to change that. But let's go to the CISPE, Cloud Infrastructure Services Providers in Europe. There are more easier titles than this one. CISPE, and you are very vocal about software licensing practices of major European players that make it artificially expensive for clients to switch to European clouds. I personally have tabled that amendment referring to your famous letters criticizing the Commission's cloud framework. Much has changed since then. Can you share how these practices directly impact European institutions and public procurement, and what improvements should we expect or should we strive for?
And thank you to the Renew Europe Group for this invitation. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to be here with you when the CADA, which is part of the sovereignty package, is finally on the table. It's a very, very welcome legislation, and it arrives at a time where we recently had another wake-up call on our dependency with American technology when Anthropic decided to, stop providing access to Mythos and Fable, and forced us to use the older, less performant version of a technology which is becoming today probably the most valuable and the most important technology that our economies need in all sectors, not just pure IT. So you were asking me on what we're doing for improving licensing conditions. I just came out this morning of a meeting with your European Commission DG Comp on an ongoing discussion we have with one company called Broadcom, who has forced, including European institutions, to use their software to multiply their price, reduce who can supply them with such software. And I must say, I didn't finish the meeting, but I came out to this hearing a little bit depressed, because I am feeling that we're not getting, even from the enforcers, the help that the European sector needs to receive. So this is I was discussing with Laura earlier. She would be giving a more optimistic, supportive message. I'm a bit of the bearer of bad news here, I'm afraid. And in relation to CAIDA, we have followed that very closely. And I think there are very significant challenges that this Parliament will hopefully be able to address when reviewing the CADA legislation. And the way, the mechanism and the difficulties that we see is that in some aspect, we are afraid for European cloud providers that this act is going to entrench further our dependency on American technology, non-European, then create more independence. And I know Manuel will disagree, and maybe you can actually clarify some of the points that I would like to raise here. But in our view, the mechanism that is in CADA today, the way we have understood it so far, is simple. A cloud service qualifies for the higher assurance level, 3 and 4. 1 and 2, 1 is nothing, 2 is a bit of data residency. 3 and 4 becomes really where the notion of sovereignty appear. Only if it's built either entirely on open source, or when you're using a proprietary vendor, if in practice it's a hyperscaler, obviously, or if that vendor opens its source code to independent audit by the European cloud provider who is using and selling it. So after consulting with our group, most European independent provider cannot meet either condition at this stage, neither fully open source. And I asked our friends at Stack IT, and I said, do you really have a fully open source product? Because the answer I got from my members, and they are also large company, was no. We always use a bit of proprietary technology here and there, call it firewall, call it CDN, and it's not open source, it's proprietary, and most of the time it's non-European. So on that part. And then the other aspect, having access to the source code, there are only a handful, and being able to audit and test this code, there are only a few European cloud providers who have had commercial agreement with Microsoft or Google, to cite a few, to have access to the source code and produce those audits, which would help them qualify to a higher assurance level. I can cite a few. I mean, in France, we have Thales, who has had access to the source code of Google. And in Germany, SAP and Delos, who have access to to the Microsoft Azure source code, and they can test and audit. And unfortunately, the audit in the current legislation are not something that another European provider can prevail itself from to actually sell the same software. That's only reserved to the companies that actually have those commercial agreements, and they are less than a handful. So, and that's the question. I mean, Manuel, you may clarify this, but for us, this excludes most, if not all, European providers from not just the public sector market, but a much broader segment of the market, which is defined in the NIS2 directive: healthcare, finance, transport. It's a really dire situation. And again, I'm sorry to be a bit the bearer of bad news, but we are very concerned. We are concerned to the point that we see that without a strong intervention from the Parliament, this CADA could become the Continued American Dependency Act, as opposed to what it's meant to deliver. So for me, it's very problematic. And the kingmaker effect of having an agreement with a hyperscaler which will give you access to the source code is really a very restrictive and exclusionary approach. That's something we should avoid.
Thank you very much. Before we come to Mayor Barthelemy, I want to give you the chance to answer. Obviously, Manuel Mateo, you're discussing this project sometimes. Can you answer and also answer the question, because Anthropic was mentioned. There are already politicians in Europe say, why don't we get Anthropic to Europe? Has the Commission already started discussing that, and how could that work to organize to get a company like Anthropic to Europe?
I think let me try to answer both questions, starting with Francisco's remarks on the sovereignty framework. First and foremost, the idea of the sovereignty framework is to give a unique reference framework in Europe to help the public buyers to buy according to criteria that are defined in the Cloud and AI Development Act, and in response, the supply market so the providers to structure their offerings according to those criteria. So there is an obvious case of single market harmonization, right? It's about making the offer more readable by the buyers, and the buyers and allowing this structuring to increase the volumes and avoid that every single procurement, whether private or public, but here we're in a public sector, that every single public procurement becomes a nightmare at trying to understand the sub-line of commercial offers that are simply unreadable to the common of the mortals. So there's a simplification of those commercial transactions. The European Commission conducted on behalf of all the European institutions a very large, almost, so it was 180 million framework contract awarding 4 European companies earlier this year for such type of cloud services. And the tender of those sovereign cloud services was the proof, number one, that European companies can supply those services. And by the way, Stackit is one of the 4 awardees, so congratulations. There's others because there's competition. And I wanted to bring that point to show that it was extremely complicated, because it took almost a year and 55 reviewers inside of the Commission to go through those fine prints that the tenderers were providing. And what we want to do with the Cloud and AI Development Act is to bring all this fine print ahead of the tender, so that the services are recognized ahead of the actual tender, and the procurers then say, give me your level 1 or your level 3 and I will buy it, but I don't need to review all those things. Then Francisco rightly points out that, hang on, but in the framework there's different levels with different criteria, and some are more or less complicated to reach. We've designed this proposal to be, of course, discussed with the Parliament in mind, benefiting from the learnings of that tender and looking at what European providers are today capable of delivering. Whether the one or the other subline needs to be refined, you'll tell us. But the belief is that European providers can provide today those services at competitiveness prices and without overly relying on proprietary technology. The very important thing is not just the criteria and whether the suppliers can make it or not, but it's as well the methods through which this is recognized. This has to be done by the 27 member states and by an auditing company. And so it means that the proof of burden of this independence is there, and this sovereignty and this quality of the offerings is built in. So there is no risk of if you want a sub-line interpreted like this or like that, conducting to the wrong conclusion. This mechanism of review of those levels in itself contains the certainty that the outcome won't be defeated by a smart techie lawyer who manages to reinterpret a doubtful remark. And then on your question of the of Anthropic, the answer is yes. So the Commission is very much thinking about this. We'll propose in the coming days an action plan on cyber and AI to hopefully bring Europe to that level. But it boils down to a lot to a lot of the points of the Cloud and AI Development Act. How do we make sure we have the right data center infrastructure capacity in Europe? The chips question, the energy question, and how do we make sure not only that the model is delivered, but then not only the model is developed, but then is delivered to the end customer, which is typically through those cloud services. So it's really an all of supply chain approach that is needed here.
But it's good news. So the Commission thinks about, and we're checking what has to be done. You want a short?
Very short. I mean,
very short.
On this point, it's interesting, Manuel, that you took the example of Sense, which is a Thales-operated, Google-powered cloud offering, and that this offering was included in the 180 million software sovereign award, saying basically that a foreign technology can be sovereign or to some level of sovereignty if it's operated by a trusted third party. For me, the Cloud Act does not recognize that line, whether it's operated by this company or that company. It's still a technology that is subject to this legislation. And if our reference model are foreign control, the technology at the base of technology is foreign control, that kind of framework certifies a form of dependency. So it's not, I mean, for me, and just on the open source part, I think there's a misunderstanding that probably this House, the Parliament can look at, because in the current proposal, the requirement for open source to be held by European bodies in level 4 is unfortunately a disqualification of Linux and Kubernetes, which are the foundation of the entire cloud universe. So I mean, those things need to be clearly considered for what they are and what they mean.
Short remark?
Yeah. Bit into another direction, but maybe to plant an idea in this round. So we are now talking a lot about criteria for sovereignty, for tenders and so on. That's completely fine. So we are going with all of those criteria, especially the sovereign ones. But like what's important for us to get more into public-private partnerships, like to build ecosystems together. We are investing a lot of money in infrastructure, in chips. So I'm I'm missing the word. That's no problem. I'm working in the public sector in Germany, and we have a lot of tenders where we need to go in with a huge investment, buying chips and so on. But on the other side, we do not see like that there's some kind of planning security for us. So I think both sides, public sector and private sector, should come more into a collaboration and into developing solutions together. And then it's also easier with building up those framework tender contracts and so on.
Let's come to an important part of the public sector. These are our cities and our villages. Olivier Barthélémy is the mayor of Abaï in Belgium. Tell us from your perspective, what does it mean for you? You know, using digital services. Is it important if it's European service? What does it mean for your village, for your city? What is important for you in this discussion?
For me, it's important to have something is very strong, because if my IT is going down, shut down tomorrow, you can have both acts. You can go to the municipality to declare your child, and that's very, very difficult. So it's important for us to have a partnership with public and private. Because the small cities it's impossible for us to make something in IT. In my municipality, I've got only one guy who makes all the IT, but the municipality, the neighbors, nobody. So it's very, very important for us to have something very, very strong. In fact, what keeps me awake, one risk, it's a combination of most risks. My first responsibility is to ensure that public services remains available to our citizens. If our digital systems fail because of cyber attack, maybe it's not just an IT problem. Citizens may no longer be able to register birth, official documents, and of course, protecting personal data is fundamental for us. Local authorities manage highly sensitive information. And citizens rightly expect us to protect, but beyond privacy, we have also the resilience. Can our municipality continue to functioning during a cyber crisis? Maybe not, I think. Can we maintain essential services? I don't know. Can we trust that the infrastructure on which we depend will remain available? I don't know. That's very, very difficult for us to work with this kind of system. Everything is in the cloud, actually in American cloud. And it's very important to bring back all these data in Europe. Not to be very independent, but to be sure that the democracy is still away. Because with the states, you can say, I say no today, it's finished. And for a small municipality like us, digital sovereignty is not therefore not an ideological debate. It's about ensuring continuing of public services, protecting citizens' trust, and preserving the autonomy of local democracy. That's very, very important. And I think in the debate with the cloud, it's important to see the liberal democracy in Europe. That's very, very important.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I was not only listening, I was also looking here. And normally, when you sit here and see so many people, at least half of them watch their cell phones. In that case, it was not the case. So I saw so many people really listening, and so I'm sure you have a lot of questions. And I will start with the questions soon. First, I want a short question. No, it's not a short question. Yeah, the question short, the answer is probably complicated, Christel. But we just heard, if we want to have like Anthropic in Europe, we need the place, we need the experts, we need energy. So there are so many things. And the next thing is AI, also energy, and so on and so on. And we heard about capital market union, which we still don't have. What can we do, you know, the politicians, lawmakers, what can we do that it goes faster? We have to be faster. I think we're sure about that.
Completely correct. We need to be faster. We might realize that we cannot build a complete independent European system in a short period of time, but we need to start. And I think we need to do it very, we need to avoid bureaucracy. We need to make it easier also for smaller local communities to understand what we are demanding. But we need to find the money, and we need to make decisions that we want to become independent. And in order to become independent, we also need to make sure that we have the data centers and that we help the companies in Europe who develop clouds or have the clouds. And I think we need, first and foremost, the political decision that that's where we want to go, and that's why I was happy with the package, the tech sovereignty package from the Commission, because that was a signal from the Commission that we want to go in that direction. We can always discuss details about it, and it's probably have to be amended from the Parliament, so it's even better. But here we have a signal, we want to go in that direction. The majority of the member states, they're saying the same. We have a new government in Denmark, center left. They say the same, and they want to invest also. So, I mean, we see it all, or at least in many places in Europe. So we need to start working. We also need to tackle the issue about energy. But in my opinion, one of the ways to become able to deliver also the energy needed is the green transition. So we need to continue working on that as well. So everything, you know, the thing is that we realized recently that we are too dependent for the world around us. We saw that clearly during the COVID and ever since that. It takes quite a long time to rebuild Europe in a way where we become completely independent, but we have started and we need to continue the course. But money is a part of it, and hopefully, and I'm looking at the Commission, hopefully also simple laws, very simple laws, that I think that could help us, because when it becomes too complex, it is difficult for companies to join in. So Helmut, I do believe that it's the political decision and the will we need to show we have, and if we have that, it will be possible to deliver on the other things, not tomorrow, but at least the decision is needed to be there.
Thank you very much. So we have half an hour for discussions. 1, 2, 3. Please, you first. Please introduce yourself shortly. Please, short question. And whom do you want to ask?
Yes. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting conference, really. I didn't look to my GSM. But I have studied physics and informatics, and I am a member of the European Physical Society. There are European physicists, mathematics, and chemistry people with Nobel Prize too, from all Europe. And I have some proposition, and I give you some good example where you can do. First, what you can do now is keep data of European citizens on European territory. It's a very important thing. I give you, I am not a fan for the European Commission, but I give you an example of the European, yeah, it's true. But I give you an example where the European Commission have done a very good job for Chinese electrical cars on European streets. They cannot send the data on Chinese territory. The data of European citizens are keeping on European territory. It's a very important thing. It's an example only. And if American and Chinese want to have our data, they must pay for it. we pay too. So another thing, a very important thing is new technology. Nobody is speaking here, but you have a lot of Chinese companies. They are coming in European countries. They are building their fabrics and companies. They are building cars and they don't pay no taxes. If they are doing that, and I am speaking for Tesla too, they must give us their technology. Without this, they cannot come in our countries to build their companies. And the third thing is very, very important that I want to say to you is invest in new quantum technology. In 3 or 4 years, you will have quantum PC. You can put it on normal internet network and work with that. If you have the capital to produce chips, quantum chips in Europe, you control the market. And it will be the future. It will be the future. And you must be a step for the USA and for China.
Okay.
That is my proposition.
Thank you. We'll discuss. Michael McNamara is member of the European Parliament from the Renew Group from Ireland.
Yeah, thank you very much, Helmut. I think we've reached a very interesting point of development when Guy Verhofstadt is saying the same thing as the Pope. I mean, I don't think he would, he's an arch-liberal, and I think he would take that as a compliment. But I mean, both in the very recent papal encyclical, there's a lot of talk about restoring people's control of their data and who uses it for whose benefit, and it's quite similar to what he talked about, the monetizing of data. Of course, we're not just talking about personal data, and I think there's a huge focus in this Parliament in generally on personal data. We're also talking about industrial data, and I mean, in that regard, and I think that's probably a difficulty that BMW have encountered. But in that regard, I think there has to be a fairness between companies in Europe as well on who benefits from industrial data, and the political choice to reopen that delicate balance that was contained in the Data Act, to reopen that in the Digital Omnibus is a very interesting one, and I think one that should be scrutinised from a political perspective. But my question is, can we control our data? It's a sovereign decision. Can we say I mean, there's a recent High Court decision in Ireland about personal data, TikTok, in the case of TikTok, whether it could be accessible to the Chinese. But are we adequately controlling our data, both personal and industrial data? And can we control that without risking a trade war? Ms. Bauer was very diplomatic when you were describing the reasons for the establishment of your own cloud system. I've read many articles about it where it was said more baldly and boldly that it was because they didn't trust storing the data elsewhere, that it wouldn't be used against you by competitors. I'm not asking you to comment on that, but I think that is a real, I mean, if Europeans' data and if European industrial data is being used against us, then we have a real problem, and it's something that we have to do regardless, I think, of what the price is. And I say that as somebody who comes from a country which is very heavily dependent on American tech, right. Maybe overly dependent, but that's a different debate.
Thank you. Is it also about data? No, okay. So who wants to answer? Crystal.
But I think it's a very good question. And can we control the data, both personal and industrial? The thing is that if we take the personal data, we have the GDPR, and we are normally very proud of that law in EU, I have to say. But the thing is that the way it has been implemented and used, we have sent away all our data. We have given away all our data because in that law, as long as we kind of give consent via cookies, or we are making an account on social media, we send away the data. And those data for social media, they have been the basis for the big language models developed, and therefore today US is also very, very strong on language models and therefore on AI. So in many, many ways, I think that we in the EU have been too naive. The idea behind the GDPR is excellent. We have control of our own data. The way it has been working is the complete opposite. We have ended up giving away our data. All the cookies, we're just saying yes, yes, yes in order to continue, and by that we have given away. So we need to change the way we're doing it, and we need to be much more aware of what we can do to benefit Europe, since we are now in a new geopolitical situation. So we need to rethink the way we're doing things in Europe and protect Europe much, much more. And I say that even though I'm a big fan of, I used to be a big fan of free trade and things that has developed Europe and my country. But today I've been very much scared about what happens, and I've seen that we need to protect ourselves much more, and therefore control our own data, and not just it's not just social media. It's also, for instance, the cars. You cannot buy a car today without sending all your data away to the manufacturer for free, by the way, and you cannot use the car if you don't do it. Is that really the place for where GDPR was invented? I'm not sure that we're doing things correct.
Laura, very simple question. Can we keep our data in Europe?
Yes, we should.
We should, but can we?
I think we shouldn't ask this question. We have to. So this is the initial problem we had as Schwarz Group, as you already mentioned. No foreign cloud provider could secure us that our data would not be used for training foreign AI models, or could be seen from foreign economies or competitors or so on. And I think that's crucial for our whole economy in Europe. So we have been highly strong in manufacturing, in production, and now the whole economy is switching. So data really is the gold of our new century. And with this, we have to switch processes. We have to switch the focus of all those industries. And this is why we really have to keep our data in Europe.
3 questions. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, please. 3 men. You start.
Thank you very much, Mathieu Paulet for Politico. I actually want to circle back to the title of this event, which is about de-risking European institutions, and that's one probably for. What are the EU institutions actually doing about it? How are you effectively de-risking? When it comes to tech sovereignty, that's one for the Commission, maybe one for MEP Schaldemose also as Vice President, and one for you, MEP Brandstatter, as I understand you wrote a letter to the European Parliament leadership a month ago about it. Thank you.
2.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Gerben from NLNet Foundation, one of the first, or maybe the first internet provider in Europe already 40 years ago. These days we fund open source software developers. However, previously I've also worked for Max Schrems, who has been mentioned before already. So I wanted to really ask this question: does it do enough to put our data in Europe? If we're going to have, instead of our data at Google or Microsoft in the US, we're going to have it at a European big company, that might still give a power imbalance. And we already have regulations such as the GDPR that require privacy by design, by default. I think a bigger problem is that they're just not being enforced. And so a big question is, what do we act like? One good example, I'm really sorry to call out the organizers of this event, but to attend this event, I signed up on typeform.com. I gave my passport number to typeform.com. I don't even care if that's a US company or a European company. A few years ago, they lost 100,000 people's data through a data breach.
Okay.
Privacy by default and by design, it's an obligation. Why, if I sign up to an event of the European Parliament, why does my data not just go to the European Parliament's computers? Why does it go to some cloud? So in our field, there's this saying, there is no cloud. It's just somebody else's computer. And I think we have to rethink that whole question.
Okay, thank you very much. Very, very interesting to say it like this, please. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Chris Papandreou, and I work for Invest Europe. It's the European association representing venture capital, private equity, and infrastructure fund managers, as well as their investors. And the question relates to the financing aspect of the package. There is, of course, an equity facility in the package, and of course, we are the people who invest in these kind of companies from the very infancy through venture capital. And obviously, we know that there is a lack of growth capital, and that's why one reason, at least, why scale is not achieved. So I'm really wondering, because obviously we like the sovereignty and the dependency part to stay within Europe. We're all Europeans after all. But where is the line drawn when it comes to foreign capital, for example? It's easy to answer the question when you have a European fund manager with European investors, fine. But if you have a European fund manager with foreign capital, foreign investors, passive investors who don't get control over the company. Is that also fine? I suppose the answer would be yes. But then again, since we have the growth capital stage where it's lacking, that's where bigger foreign funds come into play. Would that be also a possibility for them to invest into a cloud company and then exit at some point in the future? Maybe just as one brief example with the European Business Wallet proposal, for example. There's a very specific article which prevents foreign ownership. And I can understand that if it relates to foreign companies or foreign governments, very much so. But if it's a fund company that provides capital and money to make the companies grow, why would you prevent that? And especially for companies that are already qualified under the EIDAS proposal. So the role of private capital. Thank you.
So this last one on capital in Cloud and AI Development Act. So it has already been said. So of course, with a capital union market, things would be much easier. When it comes to data centers and cloud, on the data centers part of the package, there's really no type of indication as to the origin of the investor. Europe has a problem of not having enough data center capacity, and I believe the Cloud and AI Development Act, on that sense, is a super strong signal for investment. A year and a half ago, when the Commission already put forward the idea of tripling data center, I think, having talked to your members, and it has already, attracted at least your attention. Now Europe is converting this into concrete actions. What we've been busy doing in the meantime is understanding how much the shortening of the permitting and the site identification can help make Europe more attractive versus other regions in the world. And we believe that what's on the table now will drastically further help that dimension. We're talking about 200 billion euros invested by the private sector in the 10 years to come. It will not fall from the sky if we don't give a hand. But it's hopefully a sector which is making 10, 11% profit margin in the data center management. So there might be exceptions here and there for very specific data centers, but by and large, it's private investments that will hopefully get a nice return on investment for their investors. On the cloud services part, one of the criteria is looking at indeed ownership of the company. When it gets in the lower levels 1 and 2, the ownership doesn't need to be purely European, and this is the vast amount of cases. For the more demanding ones, where public order, the protection of public order really comes into play, it is indeed limited to companies that are owned and controlled in Europe, so European headquarter in plain English. We've reused the definition of the European Defence Fund. And so I'm not sure all the mechanisms you were talking about, joint venture, early things and so on, but the spirit is it goes down to the classic 51% of European ownership and so on. But we can discuss the fine print of the rules separately.
Just on the number, and again, this is not, I don't want to pick a fight with you, but we did the calculation at CISPE. How much money would it take to achieve the goal that is in this sovereignty package and come from 12 gigawatt of installed capacity in all data center in Europe to nearly 60? And the calculation that we have, we're happy to share it, is 1.8 trillion. And so in answer to the question of the gentleman from the total annual investment equity, private equity is 600 something per year, 600 billion. So even if all the private investor equity money was put into data center, we would not be able to reach that target. So unless this institution wants, I don't know, to propose the creation of a cloud and AI bonds to finance the development of a truly European sector, I don't think we can get there, just number-wise.
Well, how do we de-risk in EU, sorry, in the European Parliament and in the European institutions? First and foremost, as I said, we have started a journey. It's probably going to be a long one, but we have started it. So recently we shifted our search engines to Quant. We are working to develop also AI tools for members, so they are safe for us to use. We are looking into how we can become less dependent on, for instance, American software. It's not something we can do overnight, even though I think some of us would like it to be like that, but it's not possible. But we have started that journey, so we are working at it. We are looking at all the aspects of our digital work in the European Parliament. We will also have training for members and staff on how to use the tools, what to be aware of, etc. So we have done quite a lot, and the idea is also to base much more of our digital infrastructure on open source, also to be less dependent, but very concretely, for instance, the cloud service for members' data is going. Today they're on the premises, and now it's going to be moved into the cloud, and it will be based on a European company, European cloud service. So we have started that journey. We also need to understand that some of it is quite costly to make these shifts, but I also think that some of the money will be saved by, for instance, using open source instead of having to pay quite a lot for licensing from, for instance, American companies. So we have started, and probably we will work with it the next many years, because it's not a walk in the park. Thank you.
I just want to say, to prepare that, we used LibreOffice and Proton Document and so on, but what you mentioned is a good criticism. This is a learning journey, and we're learning from that. Thank you very much. Next time we do it differently. We have one or two short questions, please.
Good afternoon. Roberto Cascella from European Cybersecurity Organization, EXO. Maybe it's not really a question, but just a couple of considerations. So the first point is that I praise the European Commission because it's investing especially on the towards tech sovereignty, and in particular there is a European project starting, actually today, Euro 3C, about sovereign digital infrastructure, merging like telco, cloud, AI, and something that is important to achieve. But apart from this, a couple of considerations. The first one, there was discussion about the data, that we need to retain data in Europe. But the point is that maybe we need to look at the type of services that we can offer to the citizen. Because as been mentioned before, the data most of the time is like we are trading our data to get services from third countries that we cannot yet have in Europe. So it's important to look into that perspective and also invest in understanding what are the key services, the key infrastructure, but also service that we need to really develop at the European scale. And the other point is within our members for alternatives, European alternatives. I see also Schwarz, but also other companies are looking for European alternatives. Most of the time, the problem is linked to awareness. So to really promote the European solutions. Towards that, we are working in a marketplace, so at the European level, to really promote what we have at the national level, to scale them up at the European level, to really create a proper awareness of the current solution. And then maybe the last point has been mentioned before, that public partnership are fundamental. Industry has the know-how, has the knowledge. We need to rely on the industry, but of course the public sector with the procurement can really drive up a little bit the change on that side, and then also the investment scale. So I think that we need to have also stronger cooperation between public-private. It's not really a question, just some points raised up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Christel Schaldemose has to leave. Thank you very much for being here. It's one of the problems with this parliament. We have always a very tight schedule. I promise it will be over here at 2:30, but thank you very much, Christel. And
thank you so much.
As we promised, we will keep on working together.
We will. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Someone else? Yes, please, Markus Fischer.
Markus Fischer from NEOS. Thanks a lot for the discussion. I want to bring back a bit what Guy said in the beginning with the example of telecoms and each European member state having its own. And my question is if that is similar in cloud, because if we think of Mistral, it's often here in Brussels said as a European company, but frankly, it's mostly a French company, right? The founders are French, the early investors are either French or actually a lot of American. I think it's getting a bit more European with ASML doing an anchor investment of 1.3 billion in late 2025. So we see a bit more Europeanization of the company Mistral, but at the end of the day, it's, I guess, mostly a French company. And my question is that similar in the cloud and European cloud infrastructure space? My question is probably mostly to Laura and to Francisco. Laura, would you see Schwarz stack it as a company that is rooted in Germany but can scale using the European market, or are you really just mostly focused on Germany? And then Francisco, maybe you have some examples of it, if you would say, in Brussels lingual, truly European cloud providers, or is it just like a national member states company that happens to sit in Europe?
Okay, thank you very much. Before we start with the answer, I would add Bart Grotius to come here. Bart Grotius is also a member of the European Parliament. He will have the final words. He's member of the European Parliament since 2020 from the Netherlands, and also vice chairman of the Commission for Industry. Please come here. Thank you very much. And then I would say, let's do the final round. Let's start with you, and then we go. And so for this is now the final round. And at the very end, it's Bart. Thank you very much for coming here. Please.
So, I think it's very important for the municipality to work together. In Belgium, for example, we work with IMIO, an intermunicipal organization that develops open source digital solutions and provides technical support to local authorities. It's an excellent example of how municipalities can become stronger by working together rather than each trying to solve the same problems independently. And I believe Europe should build on these successful regional initiatives instead of starting from scratch. We need a genuine European network connecting municipalities, regional support organization, and cybersecurity experts, allowing us to exchange best practices, share experiences, and develop common solutions. Because the cyber threats don't stop at national borders. Our response should not stop there either. For small municipalities, cooperation also means economies of scale. By sharing expertise, cloud infrastructure, and cybersecurity services, we can access capabilities that would otherwise be completely beyond our reach. It's interesting if the European Commission or European Union create a new European Rural Digital Sovereignty Program for all municipalities, biggest or smallest, and not centralize everything in Brussels, but quite the opposite. It would strengthen existing local and regional networks, connect them across Europe, and ensure that even the smallest municipality benefits from the same level of expertise and protection as much larger administrations. I believe this perfectly reflects one of Europe's greatest strengths, that's subsidiarity. Europe shouldn't do everything itself, but it should help local authorities to work together more effectively. Because when municipalities cooperate, Europe becomes stronger.
Thank you very much. The Commission, please.
So thank you very much, and thank you again to Renew for today's invitation. Very interesting conversation. I'm curious to listen to the question, because this is on the European cloud players, because it works differently than the telecom sector. There's no national authorization to operate, and yet European players, by and large, OVH does its business in France, Aruba in Italy, Stackit will hear it, but probably mostly in Germany. There's a few exceptions, but it tends to be like this. And the best answer I have to the reasons are not driven by regulation or are not driven by market forces, except the one of public perception. And probably induced by others who want us to believe that Europeans are too small, too expensive, not capable, not cyber secure, not competent, not mature, not enough services. I mean, you see it in plenty different flavors, to the point that a lot of Europeans are convinced that there's no possible European solutions. And I think what the tech sovereignty message is saying, and Madame Schaldemose a moment ago said, this was the signal. So I'm grateful for that comment. And I think part of that signal is to say, no, we are capable and we have decided to take this into our hands. So that will be my conclusion of the day.
I will have to agree with Manuel on this one. No, it's not. We don't disagree on everything. We have a lot of points in common. But yes, on our side, what we see is most of these companies, they are born in one country. It's one founder, one region. But then they develop and they have data center, 5, 10, 20, 30 data center all across Europe, also in the US, in Asia. So they tend to become multi-country. And what is interesting in the cloud industry is two things, I'd say. First, many of these companies, they are providing services to software company or managed service provider, as we call it in this field, which allows them to actually sell their services in different countries with their own clients. And so there is a very strong capillarity. European companies, especially those who specialize in hosting and supporting MSPs, they can actually be very close to every customer, including your municipality in the Luxembourg region. Some of your providers are probably hopefully on a European cloud providers, and they are servicing you using those infrastructures. So that granularity is very important. And yes, European companies are smaller than their American competitors, but they are not that small. And I have heard two things very interesting. One I've heard with also Madame Birkunen, Roberto Vela, and all the CEOs saying we have never been unable to meet a customer request for capacity, never. This was the CEOs of all the largest cloud provider, of which you were there. What I have also witnessed, and the Commission is funding some of that effort, is that although these companies are fragmented because they are smaller and they are scattered around different countries, different languages, but the cloud services are by definition a product of virtualization. So you have one resources, a physical resource, and like the bread in the final supper, you can multiply this physical device into a number of virtual devices and rent them. And that, unlike making cars or making airplanes, allows you to federate, aggregate services between competitors in many different countries. And let's take, if you have 50 companies, smaller companies, federating 2 or 1 gigawatt of compute capacity, that can create a 50 or 100 megawatt of capacity for one customer, which is more than a Google or Microsoft can provide with their own capacity. So it's a different business than putting together pieces of hardware. We put piece of dematerialized virtual hardware. So it's a strength in our fragmentation.
Thank you. It's my bad that I'm the last one, because I will really try to keep it short and structured, because there had been so many ideas and inputs. Maybe to start with our positioning as Stackit. So we are positioning ourselves as European hyperscaler. So we started in Germany, but we are expanding to the European market with the cloud tender. We recently announced a cooperation with KPN in the Netherlands, and but to adopt it to the European cloud market, first of all, it's about building up infrastructure in European countries, as you said. So it's about investment, it's about regulation, understanding foreign regulation, about market entries. And but like to summarize everything, I think it's not simply always about cloud infrastructure, but about building ecosystems for the whole market. And we're also back at your point. We really need to understand what our economy needs, what the public sector needs, and then we can build those systems with startups, with digital companies, and also with the public sector and the companies. Which is about like software, offers, and so on. And then I think what you also should keep in mind is that those different markets or countries have different maturity levels. So if you, for example, have a look at Denmark in the public sector, they are really far in digitalizing public administration. So there are such different levels. So it's really difficult to adopt to all of those markets. So it will take time. But like to come back to our positioning as Stackit, we really are trying to to build up all of those markets in whole Europe.
Thank you very much. The same goes for some Baltic countries. Once I saw, when people look for a job in Austria, for instance, they still have to go to an office and wait for hours and so on and so forth. In Estonia, I saw a report about Estonia that everything is online and it works much better, of course. So you're right with the differences. So, Bart, I'm very grateful that you're here, and thank you very much for listening for a long time. And so you saw all these different ideas, and you have a lot of experience. So please tell us your remarks, and also we heard also a few things which we have to do as Parliament, as a Commission, as the nation states. What should be the next steps? Thank you very much.
Cheers. I first thought of David Cameron when I heard these conversations. David Cameron was trying to lead the Conservative Party, and at his time, when he ascended power, the Conservative Party there was almost dead. Labour had been in power for many years, and the party itself was nearly dead. They had a huge ambition to become more green, to serve the new prime minister. And the first thing he said is, first, I clean up the Conservative Party itself, the bureau, the members, the connections with businesses. We become more green. We have a new party program with new energy. Before he ascended power in Downing Street 10, he cleaned up his own party. This is exactly what I thought was so appealing to Christel Schaldemose. So if you want to do something, if you ask, if you demand of our businesses, of our critical infrastructure, more, to buy more, to procure more sovereign cloud from Europe, not just cloud, but also AI, we'll talk about that later. You start in your own house. This house is co-legislator through the Lisbon Treaty, together with the Council. If I see how, because the title of this, like Mathieu Paulette rightfully said, de-risking European institutions is the title of this. It's really dire, dear friends. Q1 was just the first step, but everyone here uses American AI models the entire day. All of the sovereignty we have flows out of this window. If I transpose this and I see how the European Commission is trying to get businesses and critical infrastructure to buy European cloud, it creates a certain demand because the nudge, not nearly strong enough, I would say, towards that European cloud. There is no form of nudging European businesses and critical infrastructure to European AI. Both are essential. Both should be legislated, not just for this, but also for semiconductors and the demand for semiconductors in Europe. To build advanced semicon in Europe, you need a business case. You can only build a new advanced semicon fab here in Europe if you have a business case. And the business case should be in the CADA. It's not there yet. And that's what I think should be there. It should be more ambitious. First here in this House, first in Commission, in Council, then in the rest. And let me say one or two things about Commission, Council, and our own premises, what we can do, which should be an example for legislators for the rest of, for the critical infrastructure. I had a good conversation with people in the European Commission responsible for the development of AI. They said there's a huge obstacle. They don't want it. Here in this House, it's not very different. The Secretary General is very much reluctant to do anything on AI. Because Schaldemose said she would do anything, but I'm reluctant. I would like to see more because I said our sovereignty is floating out the window. All of our data is going to the US. Whether we have a sovereign European cloud from Schwarz or not, doesn't matter. We use American AI. In the European Commission, they said this example. When we had email introduced in our premises, the first thing they did was getting the treaties there, and they said, everything needs to be on paper. We will not accept email. That was a battle fought decades ago, but the mentality is still there, not to transform yourself first before you transform the continent. This is something I would like to see more. This is also Renew Europe calling for the institutions to do more yourself first, to clean, like David Cameron, clean your house first, do what needs to be done, and then say, now we demand from you. And this is something that, if we do not do that, our credibility is at stake. So European institutions de-risking should indeed first look at yourself. Now, one or two remarks on what has been said, and then I'll close down in the last couple of minutes. First, I would like to really reiterate some of the real good remarks that have been made, that cloud is only a phase in the development towards ubiquitous computing, towards AI. There will be a hockey stick curve. If we're not in there now, we will be too late. There is a chance now. There's a beautiful Chinese saying says that the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago. The second best moment is today. So we can still do it. We're behind cloud. We're behind AI, but we can still do it. One of the things I haven't heard is I heard Google putting forward its source code. I'm not surprised, because Google is a good example of how they were really behind Azure. They were really behind AWS. What did they do? They open sourced their source code, parts of it. And within 18 months, within 1.5 years, they were on par with AWS and Azure. Look at the Chinese in AI. They were hugely behind AI frontier models from the US. What did they do? They open sourced. Xi Jinping is personally, in the CAC, the Cyber Administration of China, is personally on it, that everyone, every sector is integrated, vertically integrated with AI. There's no doubling, no holes. Xi Jinping is leading that effort with open source technology. And now Europe. Europe is behind cloud, just like Google. We are behind AI. What should we do? Of course we should use open source. Of course we should do much, much more with open source. And there is an open source communication. But is it ambitious enough? I'm afraid it's not. I'm afraid we would still use proprietary, closed software from the Americans or later the Chinese. Like the mayor has said, like you said. What we need is European open cloud solutions, the European way of doing business. And that's what I think is still missing. One thing about the Committee of Regions, I'd like to end with that. The mayor and others have said, what can we do? You will be subjugated to a lock-in effect from the Americans. That will be for a while to come. I am convinced. But we can do something all together here with all forms of government and as procures in the next couple of months. There is a non-disclosure agreement that you can always and easily, without any punishment, and in your non-disclosure agreements, with any contract you make with the Americans, you should be able to force them, if you want to go to European cloud, that you can. Lots of obstacles to go from the Americans to a European solution is in non-disclosure agreement. This is something that Renew Europe or others should be able to distribute to all municipalities across Europe. Doing good contracts is easy to do. My last remark is, I want to thank all the speakers and the great discussions that we had. There's a lot of energy here, and I think that we will lead the debate here in Parliament, do much more than we did. I'm looking forward to it, but voices and concerns are heard. The ambition is here, and I would like to thank you all for coming and for the great conversation that we had. Thanks.
Thank you, Bart. You see, that's really great. At the end, we started a little bit pessimistic, but we end optimistic. Thanks to you. That's really great. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't know if there's still a few drinks outside. Yes, it might be. Yeah, so whatever's here, please take it. And please come back when we do our next events. All the best.
check with my assistant.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to be done here. Yeah, and we like on a mission, and I'm not a solo. I develop software